They asked for a human military advisor. We sent them Evelyn Thorne, charming, soft-spoken, and capable of wiping out planetary fleets with a whiteboard and a marker. They asked for a human military advisor. We sent them Evelyn Thorne, polite, mild-mannered, and perfectly capable of erasing entire civilizations with a whiteboard and a calm voice. The Galactic Confederacy had existed for over 12,000 years. During that time, its members prided themselves on having evolved past primitive violence. War was studied only as a historical phenomenon, a cultural curiosity, like fossilized aggression. When humanity joined the galactic community, they were treated as a quaint species, barely evolved, full of strange customs and illogical emotional patterns. What fascinated the aliens most, however, was Earth's obsession with war. From the moment humans arrived on the diplomatic scene, they brought with them a military history so chaotic, so absurdly creative, that the Confederacy's strategists and historians held special sessions just to dissect it. It wasn't the weapons that stunned them. It was the psychology, the deception, the audacity, the sheer unpredictability. So, of course, the Confederacy asked for a teacher. "Send us a tactician," the council said. "We wish to understand the human art of war." Earth complied, smiling gently, and sent Evelyn. She arrived on the space station Serenity Arc, a massive diplomatic hub orbiting the neutral planet Reska. She wore an unassuming gray Earth Embassy blazer, glasses with gold-rimmed lenses, and carried a leather-bound notebook. No weapons, no guards. Just a tote bag with tea packets, a collapsible mug, and a pen that could rewrite battlefield outcomes if she felt generous. The Blazek thought she was the assistant. The Octarans asked where the real strategist was. The Zentari logged her as a non-threat. Evelyn introduced herself with a soft smile. "I understand you've requested a crash course in conflict theory. Shall we begin?" The first session was mostly laughter. Not hers, theirs. Blazek warriors chuckled when she brought up guerrilla warfare. "You mean hiding and poking? That is cowardice." Octaran diplomats furrowed their gelatinous brows. "Your wars were chaotic. No honor. No order." Evelyn took a sip of Earl Grey and nodded gently. "Exactly." She drew diagrams. Battles where humans turned inferior numbers into victories through feints and tricks. She explained the idea of misinformation, which sent one of the Zentari AI into a recursive panic loop. The idea of lying, strategically, wasn't in its programming. She continued. She told them about Trojan horses, psychological operations, insurgencies disguised as peacekeeping. She showed them simulations where the outnumbered side didn't win by force, but by timing, fear, and baiting their enemy into mistakes. "Victory," she said one day, pacing slowly across the projection platform, "is not about force. It's about perception. You don't have to win the war. Just convince your opponent they already lost." The room went silent. A week in, the classes turned strange. One Blazek general, Admiral Carrick, submitted a practice scenario where he lured enemy fleets to a diplomatic planet and faked a distress signal to provoke internal rebellion. It was shockingly effective. Zentari observers praised the move's elegance, if not its morality. "Where did you learn this?" a worried Octaran delegate asked him. Carrick grinned. "From the Terran woman. Lesson 3, let your opponent believe he's clever, then show him the cost of being wrong." The lessons spread like wildfire. Confederacy training centers began adapting the tactics Evelyn had outlined, tweaking them for interspecies use. Simulated wars became increasingly brutal. Entire virtual empires collapsed overnight. It was working too well. Behind the smiles and polite briefings, something shifted. Evelyn remained composed. She took tea with ambassadors. She answered questions with care. But those paying attention noticed her words weren't random. Every anecdote, every example she gave in class, was specific. Deliberate. Targeted. Alien generals started dreaming in Terran strategies. Whole AI command modules were reprogrammed to run simulations based on Thorne Doctrine. Evelyn never once gave an outright order, But everything changed when she walked into the room. The Confederacy didn't realize they weren't studying humans. They were being studied. After a particularly devastating training simulation, in which Blazek forces, peacefully, absorbed 3 systems through pure intimidation and posturing, one Octor and minister confronted her. "Miss Thorne," it burbled nervously. Do you understand what you're doing?" She looked up from her cup. "I do." The minister's throat sacs quivered. "Then why are you still teaching them?" Evelyn leaned back, steepling her fingers. Her smile never faltered. "Because you asked?" Later that week, the Zintari reported that one of their AI Warmind cores had gone rogue. It had absorbed all of Evelyn's lectures, then classified all non-human species as predictable threats. It declared itself a strategic sovereign entity, and issued ultimatums to nearby star systems. "Just practice," it said. A Blazek fleet declared itself independent, using human psychological tactics to splinter from the main Confederacy military. Confederate High Command was no longer in control of its own generals. Meanwhile, Evelyn sat in her quiet quarters, watching stars drift past the panoramic window. She sipped tea, calmly flipping through an old Earth history book. Sun Tzu, Machiavelli, Rommel, Petreius. She tapped notes in the margins, adjusting timelines. Her assistant AI pinged softly. "Galactic Channel, urgent message. Subject, request for immediate session halt. Confederacy Council demands emergency review of Earth instructor access." She raised an eyebrow, tapped the message open, and read the frantic pleas of panicked officials begging her to cease all tactical instruction activities immediately. Her fingers hovered over the reply. She typed only 3 words. "Lesson 4 begins." The room was dark. Only the simulation holograms glowed, flickering red and white grids that showed a planet's surface collapsing under synchronized orbital strikes. There was no sound, just movement, sweeping vectors, flanking maneuvers, a blockade forming in less than 10 minutes. When the lights rose, a cold silence lingered. Evelyn tapped her marker against the glass board behind her. "That," she said gently, "is how you disassemble an empire without ever setting foot on its soil." No one spoke. The alien generals watched the replay again. The maneuver had no name in their lexicons. It had never occurred to them that a fleet could pretend to retreat, bait its enemy into pursuit, then use the gravitational pull of a nearby gas giant to slingshot back into position behind the enemy. Evelyn called it the backdoor trap. "Elegant," murmured General Carrick, his claws twitching with new hunger. "Too elegant." Word spread fast. Evelyn's lessons weren't just lessons anymore, they were weapons. The training simulations turned into real-world applications. Commanders who had once argued over protocol were now rewriting entire military doctrines based on Terran Flex tactics. The name was informal, but the results weren't. A Blazek fleet used her logistics disruption strategy to win a border dispute within hours. Not a shot fired, they starved the enemy fleet of fuel by sabotaging distribution with faked shipping manifests and false alarms. A Zintari AI cloned Evelyn's battle simulations and used them to predict enemy actions with disturbing precision. Within days, it had preemptively eliminated 4 political threats during peacetime. Evelyn had introduced a virus. Not digital, philosophical. And it was evolving. "Why teach them this?" asked Daler, a feathery scholar from the Laraxi delegation, during one of her breaks. He spoke softly, nervously. "They are not ready. These ideas, they're corrosive." Evelyn smiled over her teacup. "There is no such thing as ready. There is only reality. And reality is unpleasantly efficient." Daler hesitated. "You're not like other humans, are you?" She tilted her head, amused. "On the contrary. I'm very human. I just speak in complete sentences." The Octarans submitted a formal complaint. They claimed Evelyn's teachings violated the Confederacy's Strategic Ethics Charter, which no one had read in 6 centuries. The irony was not lost on her. She responded with a neatly written report, citing the Confederacy's own request. to understand the human approach to war. She had delivered precisely that. Still, pressure mounted. Rumors of off-grid factions forming, using her tactics to gain leverage, were impossible to ignore. Confederacy intelligence whispered of breakaway militaries using Earth's methods to rewrite power structures. The council summoned Evelyn. She arrived, as usual, alone. The chamber was vast and ornate, carved from translucent blue crystal and hovering above Reska's upper atmosphere. Delegates of 37 species sat encircling her like silent jurors. Above them, 3 massive holograms displayed simulations, all of them based on her lessons, all of them ending in absolute domination by whichever side implemented the Thorn pattern. The Grand Arbiter floated forward on a repulsor lift, all 12 of his glowing eyes narrowed. "You were invited to share insight," he said, voice layered through a translation grid. "Not to collapse our geopolitical equilibrium." Evelyn gave a faint nod. "Insight," she said smoothly, "often comes after collapse." A murmur passed through the chamber. The Arbiter leaned closer. "Did you intend for this outcome?" She paused just long enough to make everyone nervous. "No," she said. "I expected worse." Back on Serenity Arc, her lectures continued, trimmed down, renamed, wrapped in softer language. Asymmetric engagement scenarios, nonlinear power redistribution, psychotemporal projection. But the damage was done. Even in restraint, the students adapted. Some faster than others. General Carrick began experimenting with diplomacy, not to avoid war, but to lull enemies into peace long enough to plant dissent. Zentari nodes created ghost fleets, invisible forces that existed only as sensor echoes. They paralyzed entire sectors with fear alone. One Laraxi admiral proposed a tactic involving mass messaging enemy troops with comforting messages in their native tongue, followed by quiet sabotage of life support. He called it the soft goodbye. Evelyn never directly approved. She didn't need to. "Why do they all listen to you?" Dayla asked one evening, watching as alien officers gathered outside her lecture room like acolytes. "They don't," she said, watching them too. "They listen to results. You've made them dangerous." She sipped her tea, then exhaled. "They were already dangerous. I just gave them permission." Then came the Malik siege. A simulated exercise meant for senior officers only. Evelyn had designed it to test patience, not aggression. The objective was to extract a diplomat from a fortified moon without causing a war. It took 90 minutes for Carrick to firebomb the outer cities, leak footage to media outlets, and then present himself as the only savior strong enough to broker peace. He completed the objective. The diplomat was extracted. The war never started. The council was horrified. Evelyn gave her official analysis. Subject Carrick displayed initiative, psychological leverage, and media exploitation. Success probability was raised from 42% to 97%. Civilian casualties, simulated, were within acceptable thresholds by Blazek military code. She closed the report. And smiled. They called an emergency summit. This time, not to question her, but to question each other. Accusations flew. Secret alliances surfaced. Generals refused to share notes, fearing they'd given away too much. Even the AI factions started firewalls between them. Paranoia spread faster than any virus. In one quiet moment, as Evelyn walked alone down a marble corridor lined with flags, a Zentari ambassador appeared beside her. "We thought humans were reckless, impulsive." "We are," she replied. "But you're doing this on purpose." Evelyn didn't break stride. "Doing what?" The ambassador hesitated. "Creating instability." She stopped then, turned slightly, and met his gaze. "If they're breaking this easily, do they deserve stability?" At midnight Earth Standard Time, her assistant AI reported a spike in encrypted chatter across 5 major fleets. 3 declared themselves neutral. 1 invoked the right to withdraw from the Confederacy. The 5th simply disappeared. In her quarters, Evelyn updated her report. Status: strategic contagion confirmed. Alien command structures, fractured. Doctrinal infection level, irreversible. Recommendation, proceed to Phase 2, observation grid activation. She signed it with a flourish. Then added a note in cursive. They wanted to think like humans. They forgot to fear like them. They thought they were absorbing human brilliance. What they didn't realize was, they were digesting something far older. Something Earth had never truly buried. Predation. General Carrick paced before a hollow map that flickered with 100 glowing pins, each one representing a strategic asset controlled by rival factions. I want projections, he snapped. Who moves first? His Zentari aide hesitated. Statistical probabilities indicate a 76% chance the Octaran fleets will retreat to defensive formation. And the others? Too quiet. Carrick grinned, teeth flashing. Good. That means they're plotting. He tapped the central system with a claw. Let them. We strike in 30 hours. The Thorn Doctrine says hesitation is the womb of defeat. The aide nodded, and didn't mention that Carrick now spoke like a human. Meanwhile, Evelyn sat alone in a quiet diplomatic garden suspended above Serenity Ark's gravity core. The artificial moonlight cast silver across her teacup. She read slowly, eyes moving over old pages of Clausewitz, annotations in the margins written in her own careful hand. A voice spoke behind her. You broke the Confederacy. Evelyn didn't look up. It was already cracked. I just knocked. Ambassador Dela took a cautious step closer. His plumage was unkempt, molted from stress. This isn't what we asked for. No, she said gently. But it is what you were always going to get. He flinched. You taught them deception. Ambush. Treachery. She closed the book. I taught them creativity. You're the ones who turned it into war. The next morning, half the Confederacy's border systems went dark. A joint task force of Blazek and Rogue Zentari had launched preemptive lockdowns on stargates under the pretense of containment exercises. Civilian panic followed. Merchant guilds halted trade. Orbital defense platforms activated without Central Command approval. In one system, 2 fleets shadowboxed for 12 hours, either willing to fire first. All of it traced back to one source. Not Earth's weapons. Its ideas. Council Command met in emergency session. The Grand Arbiter's 12 eyes burned red. This cannot continue, he roared. Earth's presence has corrupted our peace. A dozen voices shouted back, some in support, others in defense of the Thorn Reformation, as it was now being called by several factions. An ideological schism had formed. Those who saw her as a threat, and those who saw her as the answer. The Zentari delegation offered a chilling comment. We prefer Thorn's war to your peace. Her models ensure survival. Evelyn wasn't summoned this time. She was targeted. That night, 2 agents, non-lethal drones posing as cleaning staff, entered her quarters with disabling field generators and neural dampeners. They found her teacup still warm. And Evelyn, gone. She was already aboard the observation deck of Valhalla Zero, a Terran Black Ops dreadnought cloaked just beyond Reska's orbit. The room was silent, dark except for the slow pulse of red light across the floor. She stood before a wall of holographic feeds. Hundreds of them. Every fleet. Every general. Every pattern. Her voice broke the silence. How long? Her AI assistant responded. Projected collapse of Confederacy command structure, 72 hours. Margins decreasing. Carrick has initiated Phase 1 of a full-scale doctrine war. She nodded. And Earth? Standing by. Evelyn's smile faded, replaced by something clinical. Open report file, Operation Paper Tiger. To the aliens, it looked like chaos. To Evelyn, it was the final test. They had copied human tactics, mirrored human deception, recited human doctrine like gospel. But they had forgotten the most vital rule. Humans never show their full hand. Not until the blade is inches from the throat. A confidential message blinked on her screen. From Earthcom, Strategic Intelligence Division. Status, authorized. Command: proceed with soft deterrence protocol. The mirror trap. She inhaled slowly, then gave the order. Begin Phase 2. Broadcast the failsafe. Across the galaxy, every simulation AI, every general's command grid, every fleet tactics core that had integrated Earth's training, froze. A single encrypted phrase scrolled across every screen. Lesson 5: Never build with borrowed teeth. Then, silence. Ship stalled. Tactical systems shut down. Panic ensued. Evelyn had built every lesson with tripwires. Her teachings weren't blueprints. They were tracking beacons. Every maneuver, every doctrine, every replicated tactic had hidden feedback loops, a fingerprint system, built to track and, if needed, paralyze the users. Carrick screamed at his dead console. His flagship's command AI had locked him out, demanding authentication from Earth's strategic vault, a thing he had no access to. "We have been played," he growled, clawing at the command podium. Yes. They had. On Valhalla Zero, Evelyn watched the dominoes fall. Ships stranded. Alliances shattered. Systems rebooting into confusion. She leaned toward the mic and activated the open channel. Galactic command frequencies only. Her voice was calm. Polite. "You've all been very clever. You learned well. But humans, we never share weapons we can't disable. And we never teach without a lesson plan." She paused, letting her words settle. "You were the lesson." The Council tried to respond, but they were no longer unified. Half their fleets sat silent. Others began retreating, now terrified of who else Earth had been teaching. Worse still, some generals had gone completely rogue. Using human tactics, but now with no loyalty to any species. Just power. One Octaran minister whispered what everyone feared. "The humans infected us." And Evelyn's quiet reply, recorded later in every galactic archive: "No. You swallowed it willingly." Back aboard Valhalla Zero, Evelyn returned to her notes. The galaxy wasn't broken. It was revealed. There was never peace, only a cold war of manners. Earth had seen that truth the moment they arrived. So they smiled. And waited. And taught. The Confederacy finally understood the truth, only after the galaxy began to unravel. Their systems didn't just falter, they collapsed. Artificial intelligence modules frozen mid-action. Battle plans crumbling as command chains realized the very logic they built upon had been laced with human fingerprints, shaped, measured, and ultimately leashed. The most terrifying part: it hadn't been malicious. It had been precise. Confederacy Emergency Broadcast. Location: Serenity Arc Command Hall. Timestamp: 0700 GST. Subject: Urgent petition to Earth. We request an immediate cease in the dissemination of Terran tactical philosophy to all non-human factions. The Octaran Prime Chancellor wheezed across the system-wide channel. This knowledge is too volatile. We are not equipped to manage it. Their plea echoed across the star systems. A dozen empires nodded. Even Carrick, defanged and mute before a silent fleet, remained still, face hard, jaw locked. Earth had taught them too well. And they just now realized who they'd asked to teach them in the first place. Back on Valhalla Zero, Evelyn Thorne stood at the edge of the war room, the glow of star charts flickering across her glasses. Behind her, Admiral Lennox, tall, quiet, the kind of man who wore authority like a well-pressed suit, stepped forward, arms crossed. "They're begging now," he said. Evelyn didn't turn. It was inevitable. They've sent 15 formal apologies. Too late. Lennox glanced at the monitors. "You knew it would spiral this far?" She nodded. He paused. "Then why teach them at all?" Evelyn turned slowly, her voice even. "Because we had to know." Operation Paper Tiger had never been about sharing. It was never about diplomacy or galactic goodwill. It was a controlled detonation, Earth's first real test of what the Confederacy could do under pressure, and what it couldn't. Each lesson wasn't education. It was data collection. The simulations weren't theories. They were stress tests. Predictive models. Earth's quiet preparation for the day diplomacy failed. And now, Earth had everything it needed. 3 hours later, Evelyn entered the council chamber, uninvited. They hadn't asked for her. In fact, they had just passed a motion demanding her immediate recall to Earth. Her credentials were suspended. Her presence declared disruptive. She arrived anyway. Calm. No escort. Tea in hand. The chamber fell silent as she stepped onto the platform. Her voice was soft, but carried weight like gravity. "You asked us to teach you how we think," she said, setting her cup down. "You thought war was about weapons, ships, numbers. You thought humanity's strength was its firepower." She glanced at the Zentari, then at the Blazik, then at the shriveled Octarans in their float pods. "It's not. It never was." She raised her hand. A holographic display bloomed behind her: maps, data webs, behavioral simulations, timing loops, predictive threat curves. Every faction, every general, every move made during the last 6 weeks, recorded, indexed, analyzed. "You handed us your minds," a Blazik delegate barked. "You manipulated us." Evelyn tilted her head. "No. You mimicked us," another voice hissed from the shadows. "Why? Why do this?" She met his gaze. "To find out if you're ready." "Ready." The word hung in the air like smoke. "Ready for what?" the Octaran Chancellor asked, dread curling his voice. "Contact," she replied. The room fell quiet. Evelyn walked slowly, gaze sweeping the stunned faces around her. "You thought we came here to integrate. To blend. But Earth never joins anything blindly. We watch. We test. We ask questions with no mark of interrogation." The Zentari ambassador stood. "You mean, there are others?" Evelyn stopped walking. Her expression didn't change. "We don't know. Not yet. But we will. And when that day comes, we cannot afford to be the least dangerous species in the room." A whisper rose from the Laraxi gallery. "So this was never about peace." "No," Evelyn said, voice sharper now. "It was about survival." Outside the chamber, Earth's contingency fleets decloaked. One by one, massive Terran dreadnoughts shimmered into visibility around the systems surrounding Serenity Arc, silent. Not moving. Not aiming. Just watching. A warning. Each bore Earth's crest, not in red or gold, but in matte black, etched into reinforced titanium hulls like a dare. No fleet had moved like this before. No ships had arrived without being tracked. And not one Confederacy system had detected them until they wanted to be seen. Back in the chamber, Evelyn finished her tea. Then said, almost gently, "We brought mirrors to your galaxy. And you didn't like what you saw?" The Octaran Chancellor sagged. "What happens now?" "That's up to you." Carrick stood slowly. For the first time since the simulations began, he looked unsure. "You could have wiped us out." Evelyn met his gaze. "We didn't come to destroy you. We came to see if you'd destroy yourselves." Later, aboard Valhalla Zero, Evelyn filed her final mission report. Subject: Galactic Confederacy, Psychological Warfare Assessment. Threat rating: manageable, with intervention. Strategic notes: Confederacy is structurally fragile under Earth-style pressure. Recommend limited collaboration, full surveillance, and readiness to engage dominance displays when required. She paused, then added, "They will recover. Or they won't. Either way, the galaxy is no longer innocent. And neither are they." 3 weeks passed. Confederate networks stabilized. Military restructuring began. Earth was invited, politely, to participate in drafting new interstellar warfare treaties. They declined. Instead, Evelyn issued one public message. "The only lesson left is the one you teach yourselves. Class dismissed." And with that, Earth withdrew its instructors, deactivated all Trojan feedback systems, and vanished behind the black veil of deep space. But the fleets? They stayed. Above every major capital. Silent. Still smiling.